Good morning, everyone. In this section, we will study the production of speech sounds from an articulatory point of view in order for us to understand better the subsequent sections about vowels and consonant sounds. Now, how can we produce speech sounds? Speech then is produced by an air stream from the lungs which goes through the trachea and the oral and nasal cavities. It involves four processes: the enunciation, the phonation, the oronasal process, and lastly, the articulation. The enunciation process is the moment when the air is expelled from the lungs. The phonation process occurs at the larynx. The larynx has two horizontal folds of tissue in the passage of air, and they are the vocal folds. The gap between these folds is called the glottis. The glottis can be closed, then no air can pass, or it can have a narrow opening which can make the vocal folds vibrate, producing the voice sound. Thus, it can be wide open as in normal breathing, and the vibration of the vocal folds is reduced, producing the voiceless sounds. After it has gone through the larynx and the pharynx, the air can go into the nasal or the oral cavity. The velum is the part responsible for that selection. Through the oronasal process, we can differentiate between the nasal consonants and other sounds. Finally, the articulation process is the most obvious one. It takes place in the mouth, and it is the process through which we can differentiate most speech sounds. In the mouth, we can distinguish between the oral cavity, which acts as a resonator, and the articulators, which can be active or passive, upper or lower lips, upper and lower teeth, and the roof of the mouth. So, speech sounds are distinguished from one another in terms of the place or where, and the manner or how they are articulated. Then what is meant by place of articulation? Try to produce the words May and December and focus on the initial sound of each word. Be careful to focus only on the M and the D. Which parts of the mouth can you feel moving? Are the parts of the mouth that are moving the same for M and D? You will probably notice that the lips move for M and that the tip of the tongue moves for D. We know that the vocal tract refers to all the passageways above the larynx through which air can flow when we produce speech. When we describe consonant production and place of articulation in phonetics, we think about the place in the vocal tract where there is maximum constriction of airflow. Place of articulation is meant the place in the vocal tract where there is the most constriction of airflow when a particular consonant is produced. In phonetics, we refer to the place of articulation or point of articulation where the articulators such as tongue, teeth, lips, or glottis make contact at points in the vocal tract to create consonant sounds. And in sound symbolism, place of articulation along with voice and manner is an essential step in understanding the process involved in the pronunciation of consonants. So how many places of articulations are there? Speech sounds are separated according to the place and manner of articulation, and there are 8 places of articulation. The first one is the bilabial. This is one of the simplest points of articulation and happens or occurs when we constrict or block the airflow coming from the inside towards the opening of the mouth by both our lips. English language, when studied scientifically, is shown to have 3 bilabial consonants, which includes P as in pay, D as in day, and M as in May. The second is the labiodental. We know words such as F and V, and in words like fro and vine, and we're able to see that instead of both our lips, it is actually that the airflow is stopped or constrained by another move. Our lower lips is curling back and rising to touch our upper row of teeth, thus making these sounds. The third one is dental. We all know that dental sounds are always consonant, and thus the dental point of articulation makes sounds of TH in think and TH in rather. The sounds are made by blocking or constricting the airflow by a method that is similar to the previous one, by our tongue approaching and touching the upper row of teeth. The fourth one is the alveolar. This point of articulation is rather interesting because in it, The mechanism is used, which is quite similar as the previous point of articulation, but the sound comes from somewhere else. It is when we raise our tongue to the alveolar ridge to block or constrict the airflow. The alveolar ridge is the point or place where our teeth meet and connect the gums. And there are 6 major sounds that are made due to this point of articulation, which includes N in nu, P in tu, D in do, S in so, Z in zoo, and L in look. The 5th one is the post-alveolar. The most amusing part is when we retract our tongues just a bit back from the alveolar ridge. The sounds coming change drastically, enough to be called distinct consonants. So post-alveolar consonants are those that occur when the tongue blocks or constricts airflow at the point just beyond the alveolar ridge. Thus, we can have 4 major post-alveolar consonants in English language. That includes the sounds of SH in shop, S in vision, CH in chip, and J in jump. The 6th one is the palatal. We know that the roof of our mouth is a sensitive area, and it is the most affected when we eat or drink something hot, cold, or spicy. This area is called the hard palate. Thus, as the name suggests, we create palatal sounds when we raise the tongue to this point and stop or constrict the airflow coming from the inside. In English language, there is only one palatal consonant. It is the sound of J, which is a sound of something in between J and Y and can be heard in the words yes and you. The 7th one is the velar. Behind the hard palate area, there is the other part of the rooftop of our mouths. This is called the soft palate or velum. This part is more sensitive and is more affected to things like sore throats and many more. This part is soft also. So, sometimes we raise our tongue to this area to create a sound, and this is called as velar sounds. In English, we have 2 velar sounds, the sound of N in going and uncle, and sound of K in kite and back. And the last one is the glottal. This is the point of articulation where we get rid of our tongue. The glottis is simply the 2 vocal folds that we have. We can say that it acts like a bottle cap to our windpipes. So, the simple methodology is to inhale and hold our breaths for a few seconds while keeping our mouths open. How are we doing this? We are making use of these bottle caps or glottis by making them stop the airflow. But the thing is, glottal consonants are not actually consonants in our language. Rather, they play or act like consonants by particularly acting like points of articulation. And we have here a good example of the word high that we often use. See that in this word, the sound of H is made with the help of glottis. In other words, we are exhaling or letting the air stream a bit harder by constricting it from glottis.